You're listening to the Vocabit podcast, where I help students improve their vocabulary for the SAT, ACT, and life itself using my unique and research-backed story-based method. On this podcast, I'm sharing the best tips and tricks for a more enriched vocabulary and pain-free test day. Hello, and welcome to episode 66 of the Vocabit podcast. I'm Erica Abbott, a former English and history teacher, the author of the young adult novel Ahead of Her Time, and the founder of the eponymously named vocabulary company Vocabit. Today's word is Schadenfreude, and I think it's a very interesting one. Schadenfreude is an ugly emotion, but a quintessentially human one. It's when you're either a little happy about or interested in someone else's misfortune. It's when you laugh when you see a video of someone falling, or when you want to know what happened with the lady from Full House in the college admissions scandal. Schadenfreude is different than just plain villainy, and there's a great article in The Guardian by Tiffany Watts-Smith that I'll link to about this. But with Schadenfreude, you didn't cause the bad thing to happen. Smith talks about in a movie, when the villain does their evil laugh because the person has fallen into their dastardly scheme. That's just regular villainy because they caused the bad thing. With Schadenfreude, you're not inflicting any harm. You just happened to hear about it and are either amused or interested. The history of this word, I think, says a lot about our hypocrisy as English speakers. In this article, Smith notes that there are countless cultures and languages with a word for this emotion, but in English, we've been very reluctant to look it in the eye. We've decided it's morally wicked to be happy about or interested in other people's misfortunes, but as Smith points out, we've kind of always done it. Even in Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy says, "For what do we live but to make sport for our neighbors and to laugh at them in our turn?" End quote. Smith continues, "Nothing unites us more strongly in self-righteous joy than an MP caught cooking the books. But ask us to name this enjoyment, and our language falls into a hypocritical silence. It averts its gaze and squirms a little. And so we adopted the German word Schadenfreude, from Schaden meaning damage or harm, and Freude meaning joy or pleasure." End quote. We borrowed this word in the 1800s under the reign of Queen Victoria. Her husband, Prince Albert, was from modern-day Germany, and under her lengthy reign, we adopted actually a lot of German words and customs. That's when we started doing Christmas trees. That's something Prince Albert brought over. We also added the words hamburger, schnitzel, and strudel during this time. But we also added some more erudite words, like Schadenfreude. As we entered the 1900s, relations with Germany obviously soured, and this is just my speculation at this point, but language reflects the consciousness of a people. Ultimately, the words that went out are the ones that people agree to say. And Schadenfreude is such a German-sounding word, representing such an ugly emotion, that I kind of think people were like, yeah, let's keep that word German. Moving into the 2000s, it's been said that we are currently living in an era of Schadenfreude. If you think about how we entertain ourselves today, everything from our magazines to our websites to reality TV and the news, honestly, most of it is just an exercise in reveling in other people's troubles. Philosophers have actually started talking about this because, whether we realize it or not, we're facing a new moral conundrum. Remember when I said that one of the distinguishing features of Schadenfreude is not inflicting harm? You're not the villain, you just heard about it later. Smith gives the example of when Kim Kardashian got robbed. I think that we can all agree that wanting to know what happened, especially with kind of an awkward undertone of excitement, like, wait, Kim Kardashian got robbed? What? That's an acceptable amount of Schadenfreude. But what about those people who took to Twitter after and were like, she deserved to get robbed, she's the worst, she's fat, blah, blah, blah. They're obviously not the ones who robbed her, but from a linguistic perspective, are they still not doing harm? Because in today's society, she can read those comments. This is someone who just got robbed and they're kicking her while she's down. I would argue that here, too, we can figure out where society stands by looking at our language. We've already created a new word for these people. We call them trolls. It's a very telling word. People don't like this behavior. So in today's society, at least, I think that's where our informal line is. You can be as interested as you want. You can read as much news and watch as much reality TV as you want. That's acceptable Schadenfreude. But don't be too happy about bad things happening to people, and certainly don't go post about it on the internet. That's the behavior of a miniature monster. It's crazy to me, though, that this is an emotion that most of us experience all the time, whether we want to admit it or not. Not to absolve us of responsibility, but sometimes you can't even help it. If you go to the grocery store, you see all the magazines with, so-and-so got dumped, so-and-so's marriage over, so-and-so loses millions. Anytime you open TikTok or YouTube or whatever, you probably see some kind of a fail vid. Obviously, reality TV, the news, all of it, we're just drowning in Schadenfreude. It's almost like not having a word for tired. It's just crazy to me. But we've kept it at a distance because we're so uncomfortable owning up to it. And maybe that's a good thing. We recognize that it's an ugly emotion. We don't want to bring it any closer. So let's just keep this one in German, we say. German is a good language for ugly emotions. Very interesting. Schadenfreude. All right, on that philosophical note, I'll see you guys on Thursday.